In the dense jungles of Southeast Asia, where legends still hold power over local tribes, Dr. Marcus Reeves and his team of archaeologists made a discovery that would change everything. Their high-tech drone, designed to penetrate the thickest canopy, transmitted images of a massive stone structure hidden beneath centuries of growth, a temple no modern human had ever documented. The locals called this fog-shrouded valley the place where gods sleep, and warned of ancient curses. When the team guided their drone through a collapsed section of wall, the footage revealed impossible murals showing future events, strange glowing symbols, and a central chamber housing a pulsing artifact that seemed to call to them. What ancient power had remained hidden for so long, and why did the temple seal itself after being discovered? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. In the humid air of their research tent, Dr. Marcus Reeves hunched over a battered field desk, the blue glow of multiple screens reflecting off his weathered face. At 58, the lines around his eyes told stories of decades spent under harsh suns and in remote corners of the world. He absently ran fingers through his salt and pepper beard. "He's never leaving the drone footage playing on loop. Play it again, Cameron," he said. Voice gravelly from too many years of dust and not enough water. Cameron Hayes, the team's drone specialist, tapped at his keyboard. At 35, he was the youngest member of the expedition, but his expertise with unmanned aerial technology had made him indispensable. "Doc, we've watched it 17 times now. The footage isn't going to change." "Humor me," Reeves replied, leaning closer as the sequence restarted. From across the tent, Dr. James Chen looked up from his array of monitoring equipment. His methodical approach had earned him a reputation as one of the most reliable technology experts in archaeological fieldwork. "The electromagnetic readings are unlike anything I've ever encountered," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Whatever's generating that pulse has been doing it for a very long time." Professor Thomas Blackwood set down the ancient text he'd been comparing to their findings. At 62, the Oxford-educated historian and linguist had accompanied Reeves on expeditions for over 20 years. The symbols carved into those walls don't match any known writing system, yet they bear similarities to at least 4 distinct ancient cultures. It's as if they're the source rather than the derivative. Miguel Ortiz, their survival specialist, stood at the tent entrance, eyes scanning the jungle perimeter as they always did. The former Special Forces operator had transitioned to archaeological expeditions after military service, finding peace in protecting those who studied the past. "We've got company," he said quietly. The team fell silent as their local guide Sanjay approached the tent. His face was drawn with concern as he carried a small bundle wrapped in faded red cloth. "My people say I should not help you anymore," Sanjay said, unwrapping the cloth to reveal a weathered wooden box with intricate carvings. "This belonged to my grandfather's grandfather. He was the last to return from the valley alive." Reeves carefully opened the box, revealing a strange metallic amulet unlike anything they'd encountered before. It was triangular with rounded corners, covered in the same symbols they'd seen in the drone footage. "Where did your ancestor get this?" Blackwood asked, voice hushed with reverence. "He said it was a gift from the Guardians, so he would remember never to return," Sanjay replied. "My people believe the valley is where gods sleep, where time itself rests. Those who disturb this sleep bring calamity upon all." Chen approached, scanning the amulet with a handheld device. "It's emitting the same frequency as the pulse from the temple." Reeves felt a familiar intensity building inside him. The thrill of discovery mingled with personal obsession. "My father disappeared looking for this temple 30 years ago. His last transmission mentioned symbols just like these." "Marcus," Blackwood said, using his friend's first name to underscore his concern. "This isn't just another dig. Something about this place feels different." "That's precisely why we need to be the first ones there," Reeves countered, placing the amulet carefully on his field desk. "Before corporations or governments swoop in, This could change everything we know about ancient civilizations. Cameron looked up from his screen. The footage is already generating buzz online. Unauthorized clips are being shared. It won't be long before others come. Then we move at dawn, Reeves declared, turning to Sanjay. Will you guide us to the valley's edge? The local man looked troubled, glancing at the amulet. To the edge only. I will go no further. That's all I ask, Reeves assured him. Later that night, while the others slept, Reeves sat alone by the dying campfire, turning the amulet over in his hands. From his pocket, he withdrew a worn photograph of himself as a young man standing beside his father before his final expedition. The same expedition from which he never returned. I'm close, Dad, he whispered to the photograph. After all these years, I'm finally close. In the darkness beyond the camp, something moved through the jungle canopy, watching. The amulet in Reeves' hand grew subtly warmer, its embedded symbols beginning to emit a faint pulsing glow that matched the rhythm they'd observed in the temple footage. Reeves, lost in thought, didn't notice as the symbols briefly reflected in his eyes before fading back to dormancy. Dawn broke over the research camp with fingers of gold light piercing through the jungle canopy. The team gathered around the central monitor where Cameron had enhanced the drone footage overnight, revealing details previously hidden in shadow. There, Dr. Chen pointed to a section of wall visible through a collapsed portion of the temple. Those markings appear to be star charts, but the configurations don't match any known astronomical alignment. Professor Blackwood leaned forward, squinting at the screen. Some of these symbols appear in Sumerian texts, others in early Mayan codices. But they shouldn't exist together in the same location, separated as they were by oceans and millennia. Reeves paced behind them, energy radiating from him despite the early hour. Can you enhance the central chamber footage again? Cameron nodded, typing commands. The image shifted to show the pulsing artifact they'd glimpsed inside the temple. This is the best I can do with the current footage. Whatever that object is, it's generating some kind of energy our sensors couldn't properly capture. Miguel returned from his perimeter check, carrying what appeared to be an ancient stone tablet approximately the size of a book. Found this half buried about 50 meters east of camp. Looks like it was recently exposed by rainfall. The team gathered around as Blackwood carefully cleaned the surface with a soft brush. The tablet was covered in the same mysterious symbols they'd seen on the temple walls and the amulet. The craftsmanship is extraordinary, Blackwood murmured, tracing the deeply etched symbols with a practiced eye. The precision suggests tools we wouldn't expect from ancient civilizations. Chen ran a portable scanner over the tablet. It's emitting a faint signal, same frequency as the amulet and the temple pulse. Can you decipher any of it? Reeves asked, barely containing his excitement. Blackwood frowned in concentration. Some elements resemble proto-Elamite, mixed with early Chinese oracle bone script, but that's impossible. It's as if this writing system predates and influences multiple disparate language families. Sanjay approached cautiously, reluctance evident in every step. My people say the gods wrote their warnings in stone, but humans forgot how to read them. He pointed to a recurring symbol on the tablet. This one appears in our oldest stories. It means threshold or doorway between worlds, a warning or an invitation. Reeves mused, more to himself than the others. Cameron called their attention back to the main screen where he'd compiled all their drone footage into a three-dimensional model of the temple. Based on thermal imaging and ground-penetrating radar, the structure extends far deeper than what's visible. There appear to be multiple chambers beneath the surface. We need to send the drone back, Reeves decided. Get better footage, more data before we approach. The weather's clearing, Miguel noted, checking his equipment. Perfect conditions for another flight. An hour later, the team stood in a small clearing as Cameron prepared the second drone, a more advanced model equipped with additional sensors and higher resolution cameras. Range is 5 kilometers, Cameron said. Checking the final calibrations. Battery should last 40 minutes. I've programmed it to focus on the entrance and central chamber. As the drone lifted off, disappearing rapidly into the blue sky, Chen's equipment began registering unusual readings. Something's different today. The energy signature from the temple is stronger, more focused. They watched on tablets as the drone approached the misty valley. The footage was crystal clear until the moment the drone crossed some invisible threshold. Then, the image distorted briefly before stabilizing. What was that? Reeves demanded. Some kind of electromagnetic field, Chen replied, frowning at his readings. The drone's shielding handled it, but barely. The live feed showed the temple more clearly now, a massive stone structure partially reclaimed by jungle. Its architecture defying conventional understanding of ancient building capabilities. Perfect angles, impossibly balanced stone, and surfaces that seemed to shimmer slightly in the morning light. As the drone approached the collapsed section they'd seen before, the feed suddenly split into multiple images, as if the camera was capturing several overlapping realities simultaneously. "That's not possible," Cameron whispered, frantically checking his equipment. For a brief moment, one of the overlapping images showed figures moving within the temple, humanoid, but somehow wrong in proportion. Then the feed stabilized again as the drone entered the structure. The tablet in Miguel's hands began to warm, the symbols glowing faintly in rhythm, with the pulsing artifact now visible again on their screens. No one spoke as the drone captured detailed footage of the inner chamber and the impossible murals showing events that hadn't yet occurred, including what appeared to be their own expedition, approaching the temple. "It knew we were coming," Blackwood said softly. The drone's signal abruptly cut out. "Lost the signal." Cameron's fingers flew across his keyboard, attempting to re-establish contact with the drone. Last telemetry shows it's still functioning, but something's blocking transmission. Dr. Reeves stared at the frozen image on the screen, the final frame showing the pulsating artifact in the temple's central chamber. "We need to get there, now." "The weather's turning," Miguel warned, pointing to dark clouds gathering over the distant mountains. "That valley's prone to flash flooding during the wet season. We should wait. Every hour we delay is an hour someone else might get there first," Reeves countered, already packing his field kit. "Chen, download all the data. Blackwood, bring your translation materials. We move in 30 minutes. As the team prepared for departure, Sanjay approached with a cylindrical leather case slung across his back. The local guide's expression was grim as he laid the case on the ground and carefully unrolled it, revealing an ancient hand-drawn map on cured animal hide. "This belonged to the tribal elders," Sanjay explained, his voice hushed with reverence. "It shows paths through the valley that outsiders do not know, but also the places where many have vanished." The team gathered around, studying the faded markings. The map depicted the surrounding mountains and valley with remarkable accuracy, despite its age. The temple's location was marked with a distinctive symbol, a spiral surrounded by what appeared to be radiating lines. "This can't be right," Professor Blackwood murmured, comparing the map to their modern satellite imagery. "According to this, the temple moves." "What do you mean, moves?" Chen asked skeptically. Blackwood traced his finger along several faint lines, connecting different positions of the spiral symbol. "The annotations here suggest the temple has appeared in different locations throughout history, always within the valley, but never in exactly the same place." Sanjay nodded solemnly. "The elders say it walks in dreams and stands in mist. More likely the map shows different temples that collapsed or were abandoned over time," Miguel suggested practically. Reeves studied the map intently, particularly the paths marked through the valley. "These routes avoid the areas where the temple has appeared before." "Yes," Sanjay confirmed. "The safe paths." "Then that's how we'll approach," Reeves decided, photographing the map with his tablet. "Sanjay, will you guide us to the valley entrance?" The local man hesitated, fingers tracing a boundary line on the map's edge. "To here only." Beyond the gods' watch. As they prepared to leave camp, the satellite phone rang unexpectedly. Chen answered, his expression growing increasingly concerned as he listened. When he hung up, the team looked to him expectantly. That was the university. Someone leaked our initial drone footage online. It's gone viral, damn it, Reeves muttered. How bad? Bad enough. 3 news helicopters are already en route to the general region, and Nexus Corporation has filed an emergency claim, with the government citing artifacts of scientific importance in this quadrant. Nexus. Miguel's face darkened. They're not archaeologists, they're resource extractors. They strip sites of anything valuable and destroy the rest. They're also the university's biggest donor, Chen added grimly. How much time do we have? Reeves asked. 24 hours at most before the first corporate teams arrive. Reeves looked at his assembled team, determination hardening his features. Then we don't waste a minute. Within the hour, they had broken camp and begun their trek into the jungle, following Sanjay along barely visible trails. The ancient map now safely stored in a waterproof case, tucked inside Reeves' pack. As they hiked, Blackwood fell into step beside Reeves. Marcus, there's something else about the map I didn't mention in front of the others. What is it? The symbol for the temple? It's identical to the mark on your father's last field journal, the one he sketched the night before he disappeared. Reeves stopped momentarily, processing this information. You're sure? Positive. I've studied his notes for years. That spiral with radiating lines. He called it the doorway between worlds. Ahead of them, Miguel suddenly raised his hand in a silent signal to halt. The team froze as he pointed to the ground before them. A perfect circle of dead vegetation stretched across the path, everything within its boundary reduced to ash. At its center lay a small brass object, a compass of antique design, its needles spinning wildly despite being motionless on the ground. Don't touch it, Sanjay warned, genuine fear in his voice. It is a marker. A marker for what? Cameron asked. Before anyone could answer, a distant rumbling sound echoed through the jungle, like thunder beneath the earth rather than above it. Birds erupted from the canopy in panicked flight. The compass needle abruptly stopped spinning, pointing directly toward the hidden valley and the temple that awaited them. The team made camp that evening at the base of a steep ridge, the last natural barrier before the mist-shrouded valley. As darkness fell, Miguel established a secure perimeter, while Chen set up monitoring equipment to track the strange energy signatures emanating from beyond the ridge. Signal strength is increasing, Chen reported, studying his instruments with a frown. It's as if the temple knows we're getting closer, or something inside it does, Blackwood added quietly. Reeves stood apart from the others, staring at the dense fog that obscured the valley. Even from this distance, he could feel a subtle vibration in the air, a hum just below the threshold of hearing that seemed to resonate in his bones. Tomorrow we enter the valley, he announced, rejoining the group around the small fire. Sanjay has agreed to wait here and maintain a communication relay point. Cameron looked up from his tablet. I've analyzed all recoverable data from the drone. There's something you all need to see. He pulled up enhanced images of the murals inside the temple, zooming in on a section they hadn't properly examined before. The images showed a procession of figures approaching the temple, figures whose outlines matched their own team's composition with uncanny accuracy. That's us, Miguel said, the skepticism in his voice tinged with unease. How is that possible? Perhaps we're not the first to find this place, Blackwood suggested, though his tone betrayed his doubt. Maybe the murals depict previous expeditions, with our exact number. Our equipment? Cameron shook his head. This drone footage was captured yesterday, but the murals look centuries old. Sanjay, who had been silently observing, spoke up. The stories say the temple exists in all times at once. Past, present, future, all the same to those who built it. Later that night, while the others slept, Reeves stood watch with Miguel. The survival specialist was methodically cleaning a peculiar device that resembled an antique sextant, but with additional dials and mechanisms attached to its frame. Family heirloom? Reeves asked, nodding toward the instrument. Miguel's typically stoic expression softened slightly. My grandfather's. He was a navigator in the Spanish merchant marine. Said this helped him find his way when all other instruments failed. He held up the modified sextant, its brass components gleaming in the firelight. It doesn't just measure celestial bodies, it somehow calculates their influence. Grandfather claimed it could detect places where the fabric between worlds grows thin. Do you believe that? Reeves asked. Miguel hesitated, then aligned the sextant toward the valley. I never did. Until now, he handed the instrument to Reeves. Through its eyepiece, the mist-covered valley appeared transformed. Threads of luminescence wove through the fog in complex geometric patterns, converging on the hidden temple's location. What am I seeing? Reeves whispered. Grandfather called them ley lines, pathways of earth energy that certain ancient peoples could perceive and harness. Reeves lowered the sextant, his expression troubled. Tomorrow I want you to guide us along these lines. That wasn't our planned route. Plans change. At first light, they began their ascent of the ridge, following a narrow game trail that switchbacked up the steep slope. Miguel led the way, occasionally consulting his grandfather's sextant. The morning air grew increasingly dense with mist as they climbed, limiting visibility to mere meters ahead. We're getting close to the threshold, Sanjay warned as they neared the ridge crest. Beyond this point, time behaves differently. Different how? Chen asked. Some who ventured into the valley reported spending hours inside, only to return and find days had passed. Others experienced the opposite. Blackwood looked up from the tablet where he'd been studying their compiled research. Time dilation. Certain ancient texts refer to sacred places where time flows at different rates. Most scholars dismiss these as metaphorical. Not everything in old stories is metaphor, Sanjay replied. They reached the ridge crest by mid-morning, the path leveling out to reveal a panoramic view of the valley below. Or what would have been a view, had the dense, swirling mist not obscured everything beyond 100 meters. Strangely, the fog appeared to have a boundary, beginning precisely at the valley's edge, as if contained by invisible walls. Miguel raised the sextant to his eye, adjusting its dials. The energy lines are stronger here. They're pulsing in rhythm, like heartbeats. Chen's instruments began emitting a series of rapid beeps. Something's happening. Energy spiked directly ahead. The mist before them suddenly swirled, parting momentarily to reveal a glimpse of the colossal temple structure at the valley's center, impossibly massive, its architecture defying human engineering. For a brief moment, they all felt a pressure in their minds, as if something was reaching out to touch their thoughts. Then the mist closed again, concealing the temple from view. It saw us, Blackwood whispered. No turning back now, Reeves said, taking the first step down the path that led into the valley and into the waiting mist. The satellite phone's shrill ring cut through the eerie silence of the mist-filled valley. The team had been descending for nearly an hour, following Miguel's sextant-guided path through the increasingly dense fog. The sound was jarring, almost sacrilegious in the otherworldly quiet. Chen answered, moving slightly away from the group. His expression grew progressively darker as he listened. When he rejoined them, his typically analytical demeanor had given way to visible concern. That was Dr. Wallace from the university, he reported. Our drone footage has gone beyond viral. It's being analyzed by experts worldwide. The Pentagon has contacted the Archaeology Department, and Nexus Corporation has chartered helicopters. They'll be at our base camp by tomorrow morning. How did they find our location? Blackwood asked. Chen's mouth tightened into a grim line. Someone at the university leaked our GPS coordinates. Of course they did, Reeves muttered. Nexus practically owns the board of directors. There's more, Chen continued. Wallace said a man named Phillips is leading the Nexus team personally. The name hung in the air like a curse. Reeves and Blackwood exchanged knowing glances. Sebastian Phillips? Reeves asked, though he already knew the answer. Chen nodded. You know him? We've crossed paths, Blackwood replied diplomatically. He calls himself an acquisition specialist. What he actually does is plunder archaeological sites for private collectors and corporate interests. He worked with my father on his last expedition Reeves added, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "The one where my father disappeared." A heavy silence fell over the group as the implications sank in. Their timeline had just compressed dramatically. "We need to move faster," Reeves decided, checking his equipment. "If Phillips is involved, they won't just be coming to study the temple. They'll be coming to take whatever's inside it." As they continued down the path, the mist grew thicker, seemingly alive as it swirled around them. Ordinary sounds became muffled, while others, sounds that had no place in a jungle, occasionally reached their ears. Mechanical whirs, crystalline chimes, and once, disturbingly, what sounded like distant voices speaking in unison. "The mist is playing tricks," Miguel warned, keeping them tightly grouped. "Focus on the person ahead of you." Chen's instruments were behaving erratically, readings fluctuating wildly before stabilizing at impossible values. "According to this, we're experiencing localized variations in gravitational force and electromagnetic fields that shouldn't exist in nature." "Look," Cameron pointed to his right, where a strange glow emanated from within the mist. Departing slightly from the path, he approached the light source. The others followed cautiously until they discovered its origin. A spherical stone, approximately the size of a basketball, half buried in the ground. Intricate carvings covered its surface, emitting a soft blue-green luminescence that pulsed in a regular pattern. "Don't touch it," Sanjay warned, though he had already announced he would go no further than the ridge. Ignoring the warning, Reeves crouched beside the stone, studying its markings. "These are the same symbols from the temple walls and the tablet." Blackwood joined him, notebook in hand. "This particular arrangement appears to be..." Before he could finish, Chen's tablet emitted a series of urgent beeps. "Energy spike!" The stone's pulsing suddenly accelerated, its glow intensifying. The ground around them trembled slightly as the sphere began to rotate in its earthen socket, turning of its own accord until a specific symbol faced Reeves. "It's pointing the way," Reeves breathed, excitement overriding caution, as if in response to his words. A narrow path through the mist illuminated before them, marked by similar but smaller glowing stones embedded in the ground at regular intervals, each pulsing in sequence like runway lights guiding them forward. "It wants us to follow," Reeves said, "already moving toward the newly revealed path." "Or something wants us to," Miguel countered, but he followed nonetheless. And resting on the hunting knife at his belt, the illuminated path led them deeper into the valley, the slope gradually leveling out as they progressed. The mist thinned somewhat along this route, affording glimpses of their surroundings, vegetation unlike anything they recognized, with geometric growth patterns and subtle bioluminescence. Even the ground beneath their feet felt strange, too resilient and somehow responsive to their steps. "We're being monitored," Chen said quietly, watching his instruments. "These energy fluctuations aren't random, they're scanning us." The path brought them to the edge of a clearing where the mist parted to reveal their first unobstructed view of the temple. Its scale was breathtaking, far larger than the drone footage had suggested. Ancient stone, seamlessly integrated with what appeared to be metal alloys that should have corroded centuries ago, yet remained pristine. The architecture defied conventional understanding, with angles and proportions that seemed mathematically perfect, yet somehow wrong to the human eye. "My God," Blackwood whispered, "it's not just pre-Columbian or pre-dynastic Egyptian. This predates every known civilization on Earth." At the base of the massive structure, where they would have expected an entrance, stood a sealed doorway covered in concentric circles of inscriptions. As they approached, the final sphere in their illuminated path pulsed rapidly, and the great door began to vibrate, stone grinding against stone as it prepared to open for the first time in millennia. The massive stone door shuddered to a halt after opening just wide enough for a person to pass through sideways. Beyond lay darkness and a cool draught, carrying scents of mineral and something else, something ancient and unidentifiable. Reeves reached for his flashlight, but Chen caught his wrist. "Wait, look." As their eyes adjusted, they saw that the passageway beyond wasn't completely dark. Faint lines of luminescence traced geometric patterns along the walls, ceiling, and floor. Patterns that shifted and flowed like liquid light. "It's responding to our presence," Chen said, checking his instruments. "The energy readings are adapting to our bioelectric fields." Blackwood examined the door's edge. "These markings indicate this isn't the main entrance. It's what translates roughly to a seeker's path, a testing ground." "Testing for what?" Cameron asked. "Worthiness, apparently," Blackwood replied. Miguel removed a small device from his pack, a digital audio recorder designed for capturing even the faintest sounds. "We should document everything. I don't trust our memories in this place." He activated the recorder and moved it slowly through the air. Through its speaker came sounds that shouldn't exist, whispers in unknown languages, rhythmic tones like distant machinery, and occasionally what sounded like their own voices speaking words they hadn't said yet. "Time echo," Chen breathed, fascinated despite his unease. "The acoustics in this place are bending sound waves through temporal dimensions." The recorder suddenly emitted a clear voice. Older, raspier but unmistakably Reeves. "The seventh chamber holds the key. Don't trust what you see in the fifth." Reeves took the recorder, staring at it in shock. "That's my voice." "But you haven't said that," Cameron pointed out unnecessarily. "Yet," Blackwood added quietly. Miguel reclaimed the recorder, tucking it securely into his vest pocket. "We should move carefully. Single file. Maintain contact with the person ahead and behind." With Reeves leading, they squeezed through the narrow opening and into the temple. The luminescent patterns brightened slightly as they entered, providing just enough light to navigate by. The passageway sloped gently downward, its walls inscribed with symbols that shifted subtly when viewed from different angles. "These aren't just decorative," Blackwood observed, recording the symbols with his tablet. "They're mathematical formulas, astronomical calculations, and something else. Instructions, perhaps." The passage widened into a circular chamber with 7 identical doorways spaced evenly around its perimeter. In the center stood a pedestal bearing what appeared to be a metallic disc, approximately 30 centimeters in diameter, etched with concentric rings of symbols. Chen approached cautiously, scanning the disc with his instruments. "It's generating its own magnetic field, and it's warm, about human body temperature." Reeves circled the pedestal, studying the object from all angles. "It looks like a key or a guide of some kind." "Don't touch it yet," Miguel warned. "Look at the floor." Radiating outward from the pedestal were lines etched into the stone floor, connecting to each of the 7 doorways. Unlike the flowing luminescence of the walls, these lines were dark, almost absorbing the light around them. "It's a choice," Blackwood realized. The disc must indicate which path to take. Remembering the voice on the recorder, Reeves counted the doorways counterclockwise from their entrance passage. "The 7th chamber holds the key," he murmured. Chen's instruments suddenly emitted a series of rapid beeps. "Something's changing in the environment. The energy field is shifting." The disc on the pedestal began to rotate slowly of its own accord, the symbols on its surface rearranging themselves. As it turned, the dark lines on the floor pulsed sequentially, one after another, before settling into a steady glow leading to the 7th doorway. "I think our decision's been made for us," Cameron said. Reeves hesitated, then carefully lifted the disc from the pedestal. It felt oddly light in his hands and warm, almost like a living thing. The moment he touched it, the symbols etched into its surface shifted again, some fading while others brightened. "It's responding to you specifically," Chen observed, watching the readings on his instruments. "Your bioelectric field is synchronizing with its energy pattern, or it's synchronizing with mine," Reeves replied quietly. With the disc in hand, Reeves led them toward the 7th doorway. The passage beyond was wider than the entrance, allowing them to walk 2 abreast. The luminescent patterns here were brighter, more active, flowing alongside them like curious companions. After several minutes of descent, the passage opened into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The ceiling soared at least 30 meters above, supported by columns that seemed to be made of stone and metal fused together in impossible ways. The walls were covered in massive murals depicting what appeared to be a celestial map of unprecedented complexity. In the center of the chamber stood a raised dais, and upon it a sight that stopped them in their tracks, a crystalline structure housing what appeared to be their missing drone, suspended as if frozen in mid-flight. "That's impossible," Cameron whispered. "It's been here for centuries at least," Blackwood finished, examining the crystalline casing. "Yet it's clearly our drone." The disc in Reeves's hands grew warmer, its symbols aligning with patterns on the chamber floor. As they watched, the crystal surrounding the drone began to dissolve, releasing the modern device into Reeves's waiting hands. "Welcome," said a voice from everywhere and nowhere at once. "To the place where time gathers." No one moved. The voice that had greeted them seemed to emanate from the very walls of the chamber, resonant yet without echo, as if it existed inside their minds rather than in physical space. "Who's there?" Reeves finally called out, his voice steady despite the circumstances. The luminescent patterns along the walls pulsed in rhythm with the voice as it replied, "I am the Keeper. I maintain this node until the architect's return." Chen's instruments were recording frantically, his expression a mixture of scientific excitement and profound disbelief. The voice is being generated by modulated energy fields. It's not coming from a specific location, it's everywhere at once. "What is this place?" Blackwood asked, addressing the chamber at large. "A repository and observatory," the voice replied. "One of 12 nodes positioned across your world. We monitor the timeline and preserve critical knowledge." "Who are we?" Reeves pressed. "Who are the architects?" The patterns on the walls shifted, coalescing into a three-dimensional projection in the center of the chamber. A humanoid figure formed from light, its proportions slightly wrong, too tall. Limbs too long, head too small for a human, yet recognizably bipedal and symmetrical. The architect seeded worlds across many star systems, the light figure explained. Earth was among their most promising gardens. They established these nodes to observe and occasionally guide development. Miguel had positioned himself protectively near the chamber entrance, clearly unsettled. "Guide how exactly?" In answer, a section of the wall shifted, stone flowing like liquid, to reveal a recessed alcove containing a large rectangular stone tablet covered in deeply engraved symbols and diagrams. Unlike the shifting patterns elsewhere in the temple, these markings were fixed and precise. "The Codex of Interventions," the keeper explained as the tablet slowly levitated from its alcove, coming to rest on a newly formed pedestal in front of them. "A record of necessary adjustments to your species' development path." Blackwood approached the tablet cautiously, his expert eye scanning the engravings. "These symbols, some match early writing systems from Mesopotamia, others from pre-dynastic Egypt, still others from ancient China and Mesoamerica." "Templates," the keeper confirmed, "provided to guide early written communication." Reeves joined Blackwood at the tablet, noting how the metallic disc in his hand seemed to resonate with certain symbols on the larger stone. "These aren't just writing systems. They're instructions." "Correct," the light figure acknowledged. "Guidance for agricultural development, architectural principles, mathematical concepts, celestial navigation." Cameron was examining the recovered drone, finding it completely intact despite its impossible journey. "Why was our drone preserved in crystal?" "Temporal displacement must be contained," the keeper explained. "Your device entered unauthorized. Its presence was balanced by preserving it until your arrival." Chen's instruments suddenly emitted warning tones. Energy surged outside the temple. "Something's approaching." The light figure turned toward the scientist. "Others come. They do not seek knowledge. They seek power." Reeves faced the keeper directly. "A corporation called Nexus is coming, led by a man named Sebastian Phillips." "We know of this one," the keeper replied, the light figure's form briefly flickering with what almost seemed like concern. "He has sought this node before, with your father." The revelation hit Reeves like a physical blow. My father was here? What happened to him? The wall across the chamber transformed into a viewing screen, showing a scene from decades earlier. A younger Sebastian Phillips and a man who strongly resembled Reeves standing in this very chamber, arguing intensely before the same stone tablet. Your predecessor discovered Phillips' true intention to weaponize the temporal technology contained within this node. He attempted to prevent access. Phillips left him here trapped between moments. Between moments, Reeves echoed. Is he dead? Not dead, suspended. The barrier between your time and his can be traversed, but only at great risk. Miguel called from his position near the entrance. We've got bigger problems right now. Listen. From above came the unmistakable sound of helicopter rotors, distant but growing louder by the second. They're here already, Chen said, checking his watch with confusion. That's not possible. It's only been 2 hours since that call. Time flows differently within the valley, the keeper reminded them. What seemed hours to you has been days outside. The light figure approached Reeves, stopping directly before him. You must choose quickly. The temple's defenses can be activated, but doing so will seal all entrances. You will be committed to the path of discovery and to facing what lies in the deeper chambers. The metallic disc in Reeves's hand suddenly grew hot, its symbols glowing intensely. On the stone tablet, corresponding symbols illuminated in response. This control key responds to your genetic pattern, the keeper explained. As it did to your father's, place it on the tablet to activate the temple's defenses. The sound of helicopters grew louder, now accompanied by radio chatter and the thud of equipment being unloaded. Reeves looked at each member of his team, the question unspoken but clear in his eyes. Knowledge is why we came, Blackwood said simply. I need to understand what happened to my father, Reeves replied, stepping toward the stone tablet with the disc extended. And we can't let Nexus get their hands on whatever's here. He placed the metallic disc onto a circular depression in the center of the stone tablet. The symbols across both objects flared brilliantly, and a deep, resonant tone filled the chamber. Above them, the sounds of helicopter rotors and human activity suddenly ceased, replaced by absolute silence. It is done, the keeper announced. The node is sealed. None may enter or leave until the sequence is complete. The chamber hummed with energy as the temple's defensive systems activated. Geometric patterns of light spread across the walls, floor, and ceiling, forming complex, interlocking networks that pulsed with power. What exactly did we just do? Miguel asked, hand resting on his weapon. Initiated primary security protocols, the keeper responded, its light figure moving gracefully toward the far wall. External access points have been sealed. Internal systems are now fully activated. Chen studied his instruments with growing excitement. These energy readings are off the scale. The temple is generating more power than a nuclear reactor, but there's no radiation, no heat signature, just pure contained energy. What's happening outside? Cameron asked. In response, the keeper gestured toward one wall, which transformed into a viewing screen. It showed the valley exterior, where Nexus Corporation personnel in tactical gear were spreading out around the temple's perimeter. Multiple helicopters had landed in a cleared area, and equipment was being unloaded at a frantic pace. A tall, silver-haired man in expensive outdoor wear was directing operations with cold efficiency. Sebastian Phillips, Reeves muttered, his expression darkening on the screen. Phillips looked up suddenly, as if sensing he was being observed. His face, handsome in a predatory way, with calculating eyes and a perpetual half-smile, registered brief shock as the temple's exterior began to change. Stone surfaces flowed and merged, sealing every crack and crevice. The entrance they had used disappeared entirely, leaving no trace of its existence. Phillips grabbed a radio, shouting orders as his team rushed to place equipment against the temple walls. Scientists with scanning devices shook their heads in obvious frustration. Armed guards took up defensive positions. They can't get in now. Blackwood asked. Correct, the keeper confirmed. The node is completely sealed until the sequence is completed or cancelled by the keyholder. That would be you, Chen said to Reeves, nodding at the disc still embedded in the stone tablet. Reeves turned away from the screen, showing Philip's thwarted efforts. You mentioned my father is trapped between moments. What does that mean? Is he still alive? Can I find him? The keeper's light figure dimmed slightly. Time within the node flows differently than in your world. When your father prevented Phillips from accessing the deeper chambers, he was caught in a temporal displacement field. He exists in a state between your present and what you would call the past. Can we reach him? Reeves pressed. Potentially. The chrono-resonance chamber could be calibrated to locate his specific temporal signature. But the risk is significant. Without proper preparation, you could become similarly displaced. Cameron had been examining the recovered drone. The memory card is intact, he announced. The drone was recording when it entered the temple. We might be able to see what happened before it was crystallized. While Cameron worked on extracting the drone's data, Blackwood continued studying the codex tablet. These inscriptions describe the temple's layout. If I'm reading this correctly, there are 9 major chambers, each serving a different function. Your interpretation is accurate, the keeper confirmed. This attunement chamber connects to the Library of Ages, the Celestial Observatory, the Synthesis Laboratory, the Chrono-Resonance Chamber, and ultimately, the core. The core? Chen asked. The central power source and primary information repository. What your kind might call the temple's heart. The viewing screen shifted to show Phillips deploying what appeared to be advanced cutting equipment against the temple's sealed exterior. Laser beams and diamond-tipped drills made no impact, not even scratching the surface. Their efforts are futile, the keeper noted. The node's exterior adapts to resist any known form of intrusion. Reeves approached the stone tablet, studying where his disk key had merged with the surface. You said this responds to my genetic pattern. Why me? Why my father before me? The keeper's light figure seemed to hesitate before responding. The architects selected certain genetic lineages to serve as potential interfaces in each human generation. Your family line has carried this marker for 23 generations. We were chosen, Reeves asked, unsettled by the implication. Prepared, the keeper corrected. The choice remains yours, as it was your father's. Cameron called their attention to his tablet, which now displayed footage recovered from the drone. I've got it. This is what the drone recorded when it first entered the temple. The team gathered around, watching as the footage showed the drone's flight through the collapsed section of wall. Its exploration of corridors similar to those they had traversed. And finally its entry into a massive chamber they hadn't yet seen, a vast, spherical space containing what appeared to be a swirling vortex of energy suspended in mid-air. As the drone approached this phenomenon, the footage distorted, showing fragmented images. A man resembling an older Reeves working at a control panel. Sebastian Phillips aiming a weapon. The same control panel damaged and sparking. Multiple versions of the chamber overlapping like double-exposed film. And finally, a blinding flash before the feed cut out. That's my father, Reeves said, voice barely above a whisper. And that chamber, the chrono-resonance chamber, the keeper confirmed, where temporal manipulation is possible. From Blackwood's pack came a strange sound, a mechanical ticking that accelerated rapidly. He removed an ornate pocket watch with intricate celestial engravings on its case. The watch had belonged to his grandfather, a treasured family heirloom that had never worked in his lifetime. Now its hands were spinning wildly, the ticking growing louder. Fascinating, the keeper observed. A chronometric artifact from your world, responding to the temple's energy field. As they watched, the watch hand suddenly stopped, aligning precisely at midnight. The case sprang open to reveal not a standard watch face, but a miniature version of the temple's layout etched in gold and silver, with a tiny pulsing light marking their current location. A map, Blackwood breathed in wonder. All this time I thought it was just a broken watch. No, the keeper corrected. It is a key to the paths between chambers and between moments in time. Blackwood's watch-turned map hovered above his palm, the miniature rendering of the temple rotating slowly to provide a complete three-dimensional view. Golden lines traced pathways connecting various chambers, with 7 routes leading from their current position. According to this, the Library of Ages is the logical next destination, Blackwood said, studying the intricate details. It appears to be the largest chamber aside from the core. The library contains the accumulated knowledge of 12,000 years of observation, the keeper explained. Historical records, scientific data, and predictive models of your civilization's development. Predictive models? Chen asked, his scientific curiosity piqued. You mean the temple can predict the future? Not predict, the keeper corrected. Calculate probabilities based on comprehensive data analysis. The architects observed patterns in civilizational development across multiple worlds. Reeves was still focused on the drone footage showing his father. And the chrono-resonance chamber? That's where we might find my father? It is where the temporal displacement occurred, the keeper confirmed. But reaching him requires preparation. The library contains the necessary protocols. Then that's where we go, Reeves decided. The keeper's light figure gestured toward one of the 7 doorways, which illuminated in response. This path leads to the library. I must caution you. The information contained there includes knowledge your kind has not yet discovered. Exposure may be disorienting. Miguel, ever practical, checked their supplies. How long will we be sealed in here? Time within the node is relative, the keeper replied. What seems days here may be weeks outside or merely hours. The security protocol will remain active until either the key holder releases it or the full sequence is completed. And what is the full sequence? Blackwood asked. Exploration of all primary chambers, culminating in the core. Only there can the node's purpose be fully understood. Chen's instruments detected unusual readings from beyond the illuminated doorway. There's some kind of energy field across this threshold, different from the others we've encountered. A mimetic filter, the keeper explained. It prepares your consciousness to receive information that would otherwise overwhelm your neural processing. Cameron finished packing up his equipment, securing the recovered drone in his backpack. So basically it upgrades our brains temporarily? A simplified but essentially accurate description, the keeper confirmed. With Reeves leading, they approached the illuminated doorway. The air around it shimmered with subtle distortion, like heat waves rising from sun-baked asphalt. As they crossed the threshold one by one, each experienced a momentary sensation of expansion, as if their minds had suddenly gained additional dimensions of awareness. The passage beyond sloped gently upward, curving in a wide spiral. Unlike the previous corridors, the walls here were covered in what appeared to be flowing text in multiple languages, ancient and modern, continuously shifting and rearranging itself. It's responding to our thoughts, Blackwood realized, watching as passages in ancient Greek transformed into classical Latin, then Old English, and finally modern English as he focused on them. After several minutes of ascent, the spiral passage opened into a vast circular chamber that defied the temple's exterior dimensions. The ceiling arched at least 100 meters overhead, with a central dome of what appeared to be crystal or glass, revealing a star field that couldn't possibly be the actual sky above them. But the most astonishing feature was the content of the library itself. Instead of physical books or scrolls, the chamber was filled with thousands of floating, translucent panels arranged in concentric circles. Each panel contained moving images, text, diagrams, or mathematical formulas that shifted and updated continuously. "My God," Chen whispered, his scientific detachment momentarily abandoned in pure wonder. The keeper materialized beside them, its light figure now more defined, almost solid in appearance. The library catalogues 12,142 years of continuous observation, plus projections extending approximately 2,500 years into your future. Reeves approached the nearest panel, which showed what appeared to be satellite imagery of Earth's continents, but in configurations that looked wrong. As he watched, the continents slowly shifted position. Continental drift, the keeper explained. This panel shows the transformation of your planet's surface over time. You may interact with any panel by touch. Blackwood had found a section containing historical events, some familiar, others completely unknown to recorded history. These show civilizations that predated our earliest records. Advanced societies that collapsed and were forgotten, Miguel called from across the chamber, where he discovered panels showing military conflicts throughout history. One panel had frozen when he approached it, displaying what appeared to be modern combat footage, but with weapons and technology they didn't recognize. "Is this the future?" he asked, unsettled. "One probable future," the keeper confirmed. "Based on current developmental trajectories." In the center of the library, elevated on a dais, floated a singular object that drew Reeves's attention. Unlike the translucent information panels, this was a solid crystalline sphere, approximately 1 meter in diameter, its surface etched with the same symbols found throughout the temple. Within its depths, points of light moved in complex patterns. "The chronolith," the keeper said, as Reeves approached it. "A complete temporal map of your world, past and potential futures. And the key to locating your father." The chronolith pulsed with inner light as Reeves approached, its crystalline surface responding to his proximity. Inside, the moving points of light rearranged themselves into new patterns, converging toward where his hand hovered near the sphere. "It recognizes your genetic signature," the keeper explained. "As it did your father's. To activate it fully, you must make physical contact." Reeves hesitated, turning to his team. "Any objections before I touch the mysterious glowing orb from an advanced alien civilization?" "Just another Tuesday in archaeology," Blackwood quipped, though his eyes betrayed his wonder. "My readings indicate no radiation or other harmful emissions," Chen offered, checking his instruments. "But the energy signature is unlike anything in our scientific understanding." Miguel positioned himself nearby, ever vigilant. "I'll pull you back if you start disintegrating or speaking in tongues." Taking a deep breath, Reeves placed his palm against the chronolith's surface. The sensation was unexpected, neither warm nor cold, but somehow both simultaneously, with a subtle vibration that synchronized with his heartbeat. The points of light within the sphere rapidly coalesced into a complex, three-dimensional web that rotated to align with his touch. "Connection established," the keeper announced. "The chronolith is now calibrated to your temporal resonance." The floating information panels throughout the library began rearranging themselves, many merging or transforming to display new content. Directly in front of Reeves, a series of panels formed a timeline that he instinctively understood represented his own life, branching at key decision points to show alternate possibilities. "Is this me?" he asked, watching scenes from his past play out in perfect detail. Childhood memories, university years, expeditions both successful and failed, your personal timeline, extracted from the greater temporal web, the keeper confirmed. "Every human exists as a node in an interconnected network of causality." Reeves navigated through the timeline with intuitive gestures, moving forward to the present moment. The panels showed multiple branches extending into possible futures, some ending abruptly in darkness, others continuing through decades of potential experiences. "How is this possible?" Chen asked, his scientific mind struggling to reconcile what he was witnessing. "Your quantum physicists have already theorized the multiple worlds interpretation," the keeper responded. "The chronolith simply maps these probabilities and makes them observable." While Reeves explored his timeline, Cameron had discovered panels showing technological developments, both historical and projected future innovations. Some of these future technologies, they're decades, maybe centuries beyond our current capabilities. "Knowledge without context can be dangerous," the keeper cautioned. "The library contains information that could significantly alter your civilization's development path if released prematurely. Blackwood had found what appeared to be a control interface adjacent to the chronolith's dais. Unlike the temple's other systems, this one featured physical controls, a panel of crystal rods arranged in concentric circles around a central depression. This interface seems designed specifically for human operation, Blackwood observed. Unlike the rest of the temple's automated systems, correct, the keeper acknowledged. The architects created manual override capabilities for their human collaborators. From his backpack, Blackwood removed a velvet-wrapped bundle and carefully unfolded it to reveal an ornate, golden stylus. The artifact was approximately 20 centimeters long, its shaft inscribed with symbols matching those in the temple, culminating in a pointed crystal tip. My grandfather claimed this was passed down through generations of our family, Blackwood explained, holding up the stylus. He said it was a key to the Vault of Ages and made me promise to keep it safe. I always thought it was merely a family legend. The keeper's light figure approached, examining the stylus. The tuning rod. We believed it lost when the Mediterranean node was destroyed 5,000 years ago. What does it do? Reeves asked. It allows precise manipulation of temporal coordinates within the chronolith system, the keeper explained. With it, we can locate the exact moment your father was displaced and potentially establish a connection. Blackwood handed the stylus to Reeves. I believe this is why our paths crossed, my friend. Our families have been connected through this temple for longer than we realized. Reeves accepted the tuning rod with reverence. The moment his fingers closed around it, the crystal tip illuminated and the rod vibrated slightly. Attuning to his touch, place the rod in the central depression of the control panel, the keeper instructed. Then focus your thoughts on your father, not just his image, but your strongest emotional connection to him. Following these instructions, Reeves inserted the tuning rod into the panel. The crystal circles surrounding it began to rotate independently, creating harmonic tones as they moved. The chronolith's internal lights pulsed in synchronization, and the timeline panels rearranged themselves once more. A new panel formed before them, showing a middle-aged man who strongly resembled Reeves working at a control interface similar to the one they now stood before. The image was hazy, as if viewed through rippling water, but unmistakable. "Dad," Reeves whispered, emotion constricting his throat. The figure in the panel looked up suddenly, as if hearing Reeves's voice. His lips moved, forming words they couldn't hear. "He exists in a parallel timeline, offset from your present by approximately 30 years, the keeper explained. The displacement field created a pocket of altered temporal flow. He's alive," Reeves breathed, watching his father continue to work frantically at the controls. "And he appears to be trying to do something important. Warning us," Miguel said suddenly, pointing to the panel where Reeves' father was now holding up hastily written notes. Though the writing was backward from their perspective, one phrase was clearly legible. "Phillips knows about the Nexus Key." "The Nexus Key?" Chen asked, looking between the image of Reeves' father and the keeper. "What is that?" Before the keeper could respond, the entire temple shuddered. The floating panels in the library flickered momentarily, and a low, resonant tone echoed through the chamber. "External breach attempt detected," the keeper announced, its light figure dimming slightly. "Nexus Corporation has deployed sonic resonators against the temple's outer structure." The viewing wall activated, showing Phillips directing a team of technicians operating large, cannon-like devices positioned at intervals around the temple perimeter. The machines emitted visible waves that distorted the air as they struck the temple walls. "Clever," Chen observed. "They're trying to match the temple's structural frequency to create destructive resonance. Will it work?" Cameron asked, concern evident in his voice. "Negative," the keeper assured them. "The node's defensive systems are adapting to neutralize the assault. However, these attempts indicate Phillips's determination and his knowledge of the temple's properties." Reeves remained focused on his father's image. "We need to communicate with him. Is there a way to establish two-way contact?" "Possible, but complex," the keeper replied. "Full communication would require accessing the chrono-resonance chamber. However, we can transmit basic messages through the chronolith." Following the keeper's instructions, Reeves adjusted the tuning rod in its socket, rotating it to align with specific markers on the control panel. The crystal tip glowed brighter, and the image of his father became slightly clearer. "Focus your thoughts and speak," the keeper directed. "The temporal connection is fragile, but may transmit simple messages." "Dad, it's Marcus," Reeves said clearly. "We're in the temple. What is the nexus key?" The figure in the panel reacted, looking up with an expression of shock that quickly transformed to determination. He began writing rapidly on a notepad, holding up each page as he completed it. "Marcus, danger. Phillips wants core access. Nexus key controls all nodes. Catastrophic if misused." Another page. "Key components in synthesis lab. I separated them. Hidden third component in my timeline." He split the key, Blackwood realized, to prevent Phillips from accessing it. The temple shuddered again, more violently this time. Several information panels destabilized briefly before re-establishing themselves. "The defensive systems are being taxed," the keeper reported. "Nexus has increased power to their resonators and added an electromagnetic pulse generator." Miguel checked the map on Blackwood's watch. "How do we get to this synthesis lab?" The watch map rotated, highlighting a path leading from the library through a series of smaller chambers. "We should move quickly," Chen advised, studying his instrument readings. "These energy fluctuations are becoming more extreme." As they prepared to leave the library, Cameron noticed something strange about one section of information panels. Unlike the others, which displayed historical or predictive content, these showed what appeared to be real-time footage of the interior of a Nexus Corporation facility. "What are those?" he asked, pointing to the panels. "Remote viewing arrays," the keeper explained. "The nodes maintain awareness of potential threats. This facility is where Phillips has been studying artifacts removed from other nodes." The panels showed laboratories where scientists examined objects similar to those they'd encountered in the temple. In one secured room, displayed on the central panel, sat a distinctive black metallic cube, approximately 30 centimeters on each side. Its surface featured the same symbols found throughout the temple, but arranged in patterns they hadn't seen before. "The harmony matrix," the keeper identified, its tone shifting to something almost resembling concern. "A calibration device Phillips recovered from the African node before it self-destructed. With it, he can potentially detect the frequency of the Nexus key components." Reeves turned back to his father's image, which was growing increasingly unstable. "Dad, how do we stop Phillips?" Another hastily written note appeared. "Find all components, bring to core. Initiate Protocol 7. The connection suddenly destabilized, the image dissolving into scattered points of light that were reabsorbed into the chronolith. "Temporal link failing," the keeper announced. "The resonator attack is creating interference. We need to move," Reeves decided, carefully removing the tuning rod from its socket and handing it back to Blackwood. "To the synthesis lab." As they exited the library, through the indicated doorway, Chen paused to examine a small alcove they hadn't noticed before. Inside was what appeared to be a transparent cylindrical container filled with a swirling silvery liquid. Embedded within the liquid was a metallic object approximately the size and shape of a playing card. "Wait," Chen called to the others. "I think this might be important." The keeper materialized beside him. "The frequency harmonizer, one component of the Nexus key. Your father placed it here for safekeeping." Reeves approached, studying the container. "How do we remove it safely?" "The containment field requires a specific biometric signature," the keeper explained. "Place your hand on the recognition panel." Reeves did as instructed, placing his palm against a small rectangular section of the wall beside the alcove. The panel illuminated, scanning his hand with a grid of light. After a moment, the cylindrical container hissed open, allowing Chen to carefully remove the metallic, card-like object. One component secured, Chen confirmed, storing it in a protective case from his pack. Now we need to find the others. The temple shuddered again, more violently than before. Dust and small fragments of stone fell from the ceiling. Phillips is getting more aggressive, Miguel noted grimly. And more effective. The node has additional defenses that can be activated, the keeper informed them as they hurried down the passage. But doing so requires reaching the synthesis lab, where the second component is located. Behind them, the library entrance sealed itself, the wall flowing like liquid stone, until no trace of the doorway remained. The temple is protecting its most valuable sections, the keeper explained. But our path forward remains open, for now. The passage to the synthesis lab twisted and descended, the architecture shifting subtly as they progressed. Unlike the library's serene atmosphere, this section of the temple hummed with mechanical energy. The walls contained embedded conduits of flowing liquid light, pulsing in complex patterns. The synthesis systems are still active after thousands of years, Chen marveled, scanning the conduits with his instruments. This technology defies everything we know about entropy and degradation. The architects designed their systems to be self-maintaining, the keeper explained, floating alongside them. This section houses the node's manufacturing capabilities. Another violent tremor shook the passage, stronger than previous ones. Cracks appeared in the ceiling, though they sealed themselves almost immediately. Phillips is adapting his attack strategy, the keeper noted. He has added infrasonic generators to the assault array. How much time do we have? Miguel asked. The outer defenses will hold for approximately 3 more hours at the current rate of degradation. The passage opened into a hexagonal chamber with multiple workstations arranged around a central pillar. Each station featured what appeared to be control interfaces, similar to the one in the library, but with additional 3-dimensional projection capabilities. The map room, the keeper identified. Here, the architects monitored all 12 nodes globally. A holographic projection of Earth hovered above the central pillar, slowly rotating to show all continents. 12 points of light pulsed at various locations around the globe, some bright and strong, others dim and flickering. The active nodes, the keeper explained, indicating the brighter points. 4 remain fully functional, including this one. 3 are in standby mode. 5 have been destroyed or severely damaged. Reeves approached the projection, studying the distribution pattern. They're positioned along major tectonic boundaries or areas of significant geological activity. Correct, the keeper confirmed. The nodes harness Earth's natural energy fields for power and stability. Chen was examining one of the workstations. These interfaces are designed to control multiple nodes simultaneously? Yes. From here, authorized operators could coordinate activities across the entire network. Cameron had been recording the holographic projection when he noticed something unusual. Look at North America, he said, pointing to a particularly bright node located in what appeared to be the Yellowstone region. That one's pulsing faster than the others. The keeper moved to the corresponding workstation, activating its controls with a gesture. A separate holographic window opened, showing detailed readings from the North American node. Anomalous activity detected, the keeper announced. The Yellowstone node is experiencing unauthorized access attempts. Phillips, Reeves realized. He's not just trying to break into this temple, he's attacking the entire network. If he gains control of even one node, the keeper warned, he could potentially access all of them through the neural network they share. Another tremor, more violent than any before, shook the chamber. Several workstations flickered momentarily. We need to keep moving, Reeves urged. Where's the entrance to the synthesis lab? The keeper indicated a previously invisible doorway that now materialized in the chamber wall. Through here. But I must warn you, The synthesis lab contains technology far beyond your current scientific understanding. The mimetic filters will be at maximum intensity. As they approached the doorway, Miguel noticed something gleaming on one of the workstations. Partially embedded in the surface was what appeared to be a crystalline data storage device, similar to a modern USB drive, but with a completely alien design. Intricate circuitry was visible through its translucent casing. "What's this?" he asked. Carefully extracting the device from its socket, the keeper examined it with evident surprise. "A command override module. This shouldn't be here. These are stored in the core. Your father must have placed it here as an additional safeguard." "What does it do?" Reeves asked. "It contains master command protocols that can reset the entire node network if necessary. Essentially, an emergency shutdown system." Miguel handed the device to Reeves. "Seems like something we should keep handy." Passing through the doorway into the synthesis lab, they experienced the promised intensification of the mimetic filter. The sensation was disorienting, as if their minds were being rapidly rewired to process new concepts. For several moments, they all stood motionless, adapting to the cognitive expansion. When their vision cleared, they found themselves in a vast circular chamber filled with technology unlike anything they had ever seen. Workbenches lined the walls, covered with partially assembled devices and strange materials in various stages of processing. In the center stood 12 cylindrical tanks filled with swirling metallic liquid, similar to what had contained the frequency harmonizer. "Molecular fabrication systems," the keeper explained. "Here, the architects created the tools and technologies needed for their work on Earth." Chen approached one workbench, where what appeared to be a handheld device was partially assembled. "These components, they're not made of any elements I recognize. Many utilize stable isotopes of elements not naturally occurring on Earth," the keeper confirmed. Reeves scanned the room. "We're looking for the second component of the Nexus key. Any idea where it might be?" The keeper moved toward one of the fabrication tanks. "Your father likely secured it within one of these synthesis matrices. Each is keyed to a specific genetic signature." As Reeves approached the indicated tank, a section of the floor near Cameron suddenly illuminated. A circular platform rose from the ground, bearing a rectangular metallic case approximately 1 meter long. The case was inscribed with warning symbols and secured with a locking mechanism unlike any they had seen before. "The architect's toolbox," the keeper identified, floating closer. "A portable field kit containing essential maintenance instruments. It was not meant to be accessible to humans. Then why is it presenting itself now?" Blackwood asked. The keeper seemed to hesitate before responding. "It appears the node has initiated contingency protocol Omega. The temple is preparing for a potential transfer of guardianship." "Transfer of guardianship?" Reeves questioned, looking between the toolbox and the keeper. "What does that mean?" "The node is preparing for a scenario where the architect's return is further delayed," the keeper explained, its light form flickering slightly. "In such cases, selected humans may be granted limited access to maintenance systems." Another violent tremor shook the chamber, more sustained than previous ones. One of the fabrication tanks cracked, leaking silvery fluid that moved with unnatural purpose across the floor before being reabsorbed into a wall conduit. "Outer defensive layer compromised," the keeper announced. "Phillips has found a harmonic frequency that destabilizes the temple's molecular cohesion. We need that second component," Reeves urged, moving to the fabrication tank the keeper had indicated earlier. As he approached, the tank's surface rippled and a small access panel materialized. Placing his hand on it, Reeves felt a sharp sting as the panel sampled his DNA. The tank's contents swirled vigorously before parting to reveal a pyramid-shaped object approximately 10 centimeters tall, made of the same metallic material as the frequency harmonizer. The geometric stabilizer, the keeper identified as Reeves, carefully removed the object. The second component of the Nexus key. Chen examined both components they had recovered. They appear designed to fit together somehow, correct? When combined with the third component, they form a control mechanism for accessing the core's primary functions. While the others focused on the Nexus key components, Cameron had approached the architect's toolbox. As he studied its intricate locking mechanism, the symbols on its surface began to glow, responding to his proximity. Guys?" he called. "Something's happening with this box." The keeper moved to Cameron's side, its light form brightening with apparent surprise. "Unexpected. The toolbox is responding to your neural pattern. What does that mean?" Cameron asked, backing away slightly. Each human genetic line prepared by the architects had a specific purpose, the keeper explained. The Reeves line were designated as navigators, those who could safely traverse temporal fields. The Blackwood line were interpreters, who could understand and translate the architect's knowledge systems. "And my family?" Cameron asked. "Technicians?" the keeper replied. "Those capable of understanding and utilizing the architect's tools. This is unexpected. Your bloodline was thought lost centuries ago." The locking mechanism on the toolbox reconfigured itself, symbols aligning into a pattern that seemed to make intuitive sense to Cameron. Almost without conscious thought, he placed his hands in specific positions on the box's surface. The locks disengaged with a series of musical tones, and the lid rose smoothly. Inside lay an array of devices unlike anything they had seen, tools whose functions weren't immediately apparent, but somehow seemed familiar to Cameron. One in particular drew his attention, a slender rod with a curved handle, its surface covered in touch-sensitive controls. The reconstruction wand, the keeper identified. It can repair damaged systems and structures by realigning their molecular patterns. Cameron lifted the device, which activated at his touch, emitting a soft blue glow at its tip. "How do I use it?" he asked. "Your cellular memory contains the necessary instructions," the keeper assured him. "Focus on the task, and your hands will remember." A thunderous crack echoed through the chamber as a fissure opened in one wall, energy discharges arcing across the gap before the temple's self-healing systems could repair it. "Phillips has breached the secondary defensive layer," the keeper announced. "Time is critical." Blackwood consulted the pocket watch map. "We have the first two key components." "Where is the third?" "With your father in his temporal bubble," the keeper told Reeves. "We must proceed to the chrono-resonance chamber to retrieve it." They gathered their equipment quickly. Reeves, securing both Nexus key components, while Cameron carefully selected several tools from the box that seemed most useful, including the reconstruction wand. As they prepared to exit the synthesis lab, a viewing wall activated automatically, showing the exterior of the temple. Phillips had arranged his sonic resonators in a precise geometric pattern around the structure. The devices now emitting visible energy waves that converged at specific points. "He's creating a resonance lattice," Chen realized, watching the pattern form. If he completes it, the entire temple structure could be compromised. Simultaneously, the image shifted to show another area, outside the temple where Nexus. Security personnel were engaged in a firefight. With new arrivals, military troops in unmarked black. Uniforms, government forces. Miguel identified, recognizing their tactics. "Looks like Phillips doesn't have a monopoly on interest in this place anymore." The keeper led them toward another doorway that appeared in the chamber wall. "The path to the chrono-resonance chamber. We must hurry." The temporal stability fields are beginning to fluctuate with the structural damage. As they entered the new passage, the temple's lighting dimmed momentarily before switching to a pulsing red emergency mode. The formerly smooth walls now displayed visible stress fractures that the self-healing systems struggled to repair. "What happens if the temple is destroyed while we're inside?" Miguel asked. "Unknown," the keeper admitted. "No node has been destroyed while occupied. The temporal displacement effects could be unpredictable." Blackwood, who'd been studying the watch map intently, looked up with concern. "According to this, there are guardian systems between us and the chrono-resonance chamber." The sentinels, the keeper confirmed. Defensive constructs designed to protect the inner chambers from unauthorized access. They would normally recognize your genetic signatures as authorized, but with the temple's systems compromised, they might see us as intruders. Reeves finished the thought. From somewhere ahead, in the red-lit passage, came a sound like metal scraping against stone, followed by heavy, deliberate footsteps approaching their position. The sentinels have activated, the keeper confirmed. Prepare yourselves. They will test your worthiness to proceed. The sentinel emerged from the shadowed passage ahead, a humanoid figure nearly 3 meters tall. Its body composed of interlocking metallic plates that shifted and reconfigured with each movement. Where a face might be, it bore only a smooth, reflective surface that rippled like liquid metal. 6 articulated arms extended from its torso, each ending in tools, or what appeared to be weapons. Do not show fear or hostility, the keeper instructed quietly. The sentinels respond to intention and thought patterns. The massive guardian stopped several meters away, its reflective faceplate suddenly displaying symbols identical to those found throughout the temple. The symbols shifted rapidly before stabilizing into a pattern. "It's scanning us," Chen whispered, watching his instruments register energy pulses emanating from the sentinel. Blackwood studied the symbols on its face. "I believe it's asking for identification or authorization." Reeves stepped forward slowly, holding up the 2 Nexus key components. "We're here to recover the 3rd component and access the core. My father, Richard Reeves, was the previous navigator." The sentinel remained motionless for several tense seconds before its faceplate shifted again, this time displaying what appeared to be Richard Reeves's image. Followed by a series of symbols. "It recognizes your genetic connection," the keeper translated. "But the temporal anomaly surrounding your father has created authentication conflicts." The sentinel's 6 arms reconfigured, tools retracting to be replaced by what were unmistakably defensive weapons, energy projectors and articulated blades that hummed with power. "I don't think it's convinced," Miguel warned. Shifting into a protective stance, the keeper floated forward. "The sentinel requires additional verification through the ancestral imprint." "The what?" Reeves asked, not taking his eyes off the imposing guardian. "A genetic memory test." The architects encoded certain knowledge directly into the DNA of their chosen human lineages, information that could only be accessed under specific circumstances. "How do I access these genetic memories?" Reeves asked. "The sentinel can trigger them, but the process is intense. Are you willing?" Another violent tremor shook the passage, chunks of ceiling falling around them as the temple's structure continued to degrade under Phillips's assault. "We don't have much choice," Reeves decided. "Do it!" The keeper communicated with the sentinel through a series of light pulses. The guardian's faceplate reconfigured once more, and a beam of golden light shot forth, enveloping Reeves in a cocoon of energy. Reeves gasped as his mind flooded with images and knowledge, memories that weren't his own, yet somehow felt familiar. He saw the architects arriving on Earth in ancient times, their appearance obscured by a perceptual filter his mind couldn't penetrate. He witnessed the construction of the temple network, the selection of human bloodlines for collaboration, the encoding of knowledge into their genetic structure. Most importantly, he saw his ancestors, generation after generation of his family line serving as intermediaries between humanity and the architects, guiding civilization's development from the shadows. The golden light faded, leaving Reeves swaying but still standing. His eyes now held a new awareness, his posture subtly altered by the knowledge that had been activated within him. "I understand now," he said, his voice carrying new authority. He addressed the sentinel directly in a language none of the others recognized, a flowing, musical tongue that seemed to resonate with the temple itself. The sentinel's weapons retracted immediately, and it stepped aside, bowing its head slightly in recognition. "What did you say to it?" Blackwood asked in amazement. Not entirely sure, Reeves admitted, looking slightly dazed. The words just came to me. I identified myself as a navigator and invoked access protocols. The Keeper's light form brightened. The genetic memory activation was successful. You now carry conscious access to knowledge your ancestors held. As they moved past the sentinel, which remained in a guard position behind them, the passage opened into a small antechamber. In its center stood a pedestal, bearing what appeared to be a helmet of alien design, a web of metallic strands interspersed with crystal nodes, arranged to fit a human head. The memory crown, the Keeper identified, an interface device that allows humans to safely access the full genetic memory imprint without the limitations of the emergency activation you just experienced. Reeves approached the crown cautiously. This will give me complete access to the ancestral knowledge? Yes, the emergency activation triggered only what was immediately necessary. The crown provides full, controlled access to all encoded information. Another tremor, stronger than any before, rocked the chamber. Cracks spread across the walls and ceiling, energy conduits rupturing and spraying arcs of power. The outer structure is failing, the Keeper warned. We must reach the chrono-resonance chamber immediately. Reeves lifted the memory crown, feeling its surprising lightness. Rather than placing it on his head, he carefully stowed it in his pack. For later, he explained to the others' questioning looks. Right now, we need to move. The passage beyond the antechamber descended sharply, spiraling deeper into the earth. The architecture here was different, more flowing and organic, with fewer right angles and more curved surfaces. The lighting pulsed in complex patterns that somehow conveyed a sense of urgency. We're entering the temporal regulation systems of the node, the Keeper explained as they hurried downward. The chrono-resonance chamber is at the heart of this section. Chen's instruments were recording wildly fluctuating readings. The energy patterns here are impossible. My sensors show regions where time itself is moving at different rates. Correct, the Keeper confirmed. The passage serves as a buffer zone, acclimating visitors to the temporal distortions within the chamber itself. As they descended, they began to experience the effects directly, moments of subjective slowdown, where their movements felt viscous and delayed, followed by brief accelerations where the world around them seemed to pause. Stay close together, the Keeper warned. The distortion effects will intensify as we approach the chamber. The spiral passage finally opened into a vast spherical space that matched what they had seen in the drone footage, the chrono-resonance chamber. In its center hovered a swirling vortex of energy, tendrils of light extending outward like a living thing. The chamber's walls were covered in control panels and monitoring systems, many damaged or partially destroyed, and there, at one of the still-functioning control stations, stood a figure they all recognized from the temporal projection, Richard Reeves, looking exactly as he had 30 years ago, working frantically at the controls. Richard Reeves looked up from the control panel, his expression shifting from intense concentration to shock as he saw the group. For a moment, he seemed unable to process their presence, his eyes lingering on his son, Marcus. He finally managed, his voice hoarse as if from disuse. "How? Is this another temporal echo?" "It's really me, Dad," Marcus replied, taking a step forward. The air between them seemed to thicken, creating visible distortion waves where their different temporal fields intersected. "Caution," the Keeper warned. "Direct contact between different temporal states could be dangerous. The chamber's containment fields are already stressed." Richard quickly assessed the situation with the practiced eye of someone who had spent years in the temple. "Phillips is attacking the outer structure. The resonance patterns are identical to what he tried 30 years ago." He looked at the Keeper. "How long has it been outside my temporal bubble?" 32 years, 4 months by external measurement, the Keeper replied. Richard ran a hand through his hair, the same salt and pepper grey as his son's now was. "For me, it's been less than 3 years of subjective time. The temporal displacement field creates a pocket of altered chronological flow." Another violent tremor shook the chamber, more severe than any before. Several control panels sparked and failed, and fissures appeared in the walls. "We don't have much time," Richard said urgently. "Phillips can't be allowed to access the core. You must have found the first two components of the Nexus key." Marcus nodded, showing the frequency harmonizer and geometric stabilizer. "Good. I have the third." Richard reached into his jacket and withdrew a small crystalline cube that pulsed with inner light. Its surfaces inscribed with familiar symbols. The temporal catalyst. Without it, the other components are useless. As he held up the cube, the other two components in Marcus's possession resonated visibly, emitting harmonious tones that synchronized with the cube's pulsing light. "They recognize each other," Chen observed. "Quantum entanglement on a macroscopic scale." Richard's attention shifted to the rest of the team, his eyes lingering on Blackwood. "Thomas, you look older." "It's been 3 decades, old friend," Blackwood replied with a sad smile. "And you found the tuning rod." Richard nodded at the artifact in Blackwood's possession. "I left clues in my journal, hoping someone would make the connection." His gaze moved to Cameron. "You opened the architect's toolbox." "It wasn't a question." "Then your bloodline survived after all." "The technician lineage was thought lost after World War II. My grandfather changed our family name when he immigrated to America," Cameron explained, the reconstruction wand still gripped in his hand. "He never spoke about his past, but he insisted I study engineering and archaeology." Another tremor, accompanied by a deep groaning sound that seemed to come from the temple itself. "We need to act now," Richard said decisively, turning back to the control panel. "The temple's structural integrity is failing faster than its self-repair systems can compensate." With practiced movements, he manipulated the controls, causing the swirling vortex in the chamber's center to stabilize into a more coherent form. A 3-dimensional projection appeared, showing the temple's current status, multiple red warning indicators flashing throughout the structure. "Phillips has found the resonance frequency that disrupts the temple's molecular cohesion," Richard explained. "But he doesn't realize he's also destabilizing the temporal containment systems." "What happens if those fail?" Miguel asked. "Catastrophic temporal collapse. Everyone within a 10-kilometer radius would experience random temporal displacement, potentially scattered across thousands of years in either direction." From a compartment beneath the control panel, Richard removed what appeared to be a metallic gauntlet. Its surface featured the same intricate circuitry and symbols seen throughout the temple, with 5 crystalline nodes positioned over the fingertips and a larger power core in the palm. "The chronometric gauntlet," the keeper identified, "a tool for direct manipulation of temporal fields." Richard held the gauntlet out to his son. "This will allow you to safely handle all 3 components of the Nexus key together. Without it, the temporal energies would be harmful." Marcus accepted the gauntlet, slipping it onto his right hand. The device adjusted automatically to fit his dimensions, the crystals lighting up as they interfaced with his bioelectric field. "What's the plan?" he asked his father. "We need to reach the core and use the complete Nexus key to activate Protocol 7, a complete systems reset and security lockdown." Richard pointed to the temporal catalyst in his hand. "But first, we need to merge the components." Chen's instruments suddenly emitted a series of urgent alerts. "Energy spike outside. Phillips has activated something big." The viewing wall activated automatically, showing the temple exterior where Nexus teams had positioned a massive device that resembled a particle accelerator wrapped around a power core. Phillips himself stood at a control station, directing the final preparations. "The harmonic disruptor," Richard identified, his expression grim. "He's been building it for decades, based on technology he stole during our expedition. If he activates it at full power, the temple's containment systems will fail completely," the keeper finished, "triggering a temporal implosion that could spread well beyond the valley." Marcus looked between his father and the chronometric gauntlet on his hand. "Then we don't have a choice." "Show me how to merge the components," Richard carefully handed the temporal catalyst to his son. Place all three components in the gauntlet's palm receptor. The temporal field will stabilize them for integration. As Marcus positioned the components together, the gauntlet's crystals pulsed with increasing intensity. The three pieces of the Nexus key began to rotate and reconfigure, drawn to each other by forces beyond conventional physics. "It's working," Richard confirmed, watching the integration process. "Once fully merged, we'll have minutes at most to reach the core before Phillips's device reaches full power." The three components of the Nexus key merged in a brilliant flash of light, reconfiguring into a single object that hovered above the palm of the chronometric gauntlet. The completed key resembled a tetrahedron with constantly shifting internal geometry, its surfaces inscribed with symbols that flowed and changed like liquid. "Beautiful," breathed Chen, his scientific mind momentarily overwhelmed by the impossible object before them. "And dangerous in the wrong hands," Richard cautioned. "The key grants access to the core's primary functions, including the ability to reconfigure all 12 nodes simultaneously." A massive tremor rocked the chamber, more violent than any previous. Large sections of the ceiling collapsed, only to freeze in mid-air as the chamber's temporal field caught them in a state of suspended animation. "The temple's structural integrity is at 28% and declining," the keeper reported, its light form flickering erratically. "Temporal containment fields are failing. We need to move now," Richard urged. He turned to the control panel, initiating a complex sequence that caused a previously invisible doorway to materialize in the chamber wall. "This passage leads directly to the core, bypassing the remaining security measures." "What about you?" Marcus asked, suddenly realizing the implications of his father's temporal displacement. "Can you leave this chamber?" Richard's expression grew solemn. "The temporal bubble that contains me is anchored to this chamber. If I tried to leave, your temporal signature would destabilize," the keeper finished, "with potentially fatal consequences." "There must be a way to free you," Marcus insisted. "Perhaps, but not until the temple is secured," Richard replied. "Phillips is the immediate threat. Once Protocol 7 is initiated, we can address my situation." The viewing wall showed Phillips's harmonic disruptor powering up, concentric rings around its core beginning to rotate at increasing speeds. Energy arcs leapt between its components as it built toward activation. 5 minutes until his device reaches critical output, Chen estimated, studying the readings. Richard quickly outlined their plan. The core chamber has a central control pedestal designed to receive the Nexus key. Insert it, then follow the activation sequence I'm about to show you. He projected a holographic display showing a series of gestures and commands. This will initiate Protocol 7, a complete systems reset and security lockdown. It will purge any external influence and strengthen the temple's defenses beyond anything Phillips can break through. "What happens to the people outside?" Miguel asked. "The Nexus teams, the government forces. They'll be teleported outside the valley perimeter, unharmed but unable to return," Richard assured him. "The valley itself will be sealed by an enhanced temporal field for at least a century." Marcus studied the activation sequence, committing it to memory. "And once that's done, we can find a way to free you from this temporal bubble." "And that's the hope," Richard replied, though something in his voice suggested uncertainty. A loud crack echoed through the chamber as a fissure opened in one wall, energy arcing wildly from the damaged conduits within. Cameron moved forward instinctively, the reconstruction wand in his hand activating as he pointed it toward the breach. The tool emitted a beam of coherent energy that seemed to reweave the fabric of reality itself, sealing the fissure and stabilizing the damaged section. "Well done," the keeper acknowledged. "Your genetic memory serves you well. It felt natural," Cameron said, looking at the wand with newfound respect. "Like I've done it 1,000 times before. Your ancestors maintained this node for 17 generations, the keeper told him. The knowledge is in your blood." Another alert sounded from the viewing wall. Outside, military forces had engaged Nexus security in an escalating firefight. Phillips, seeing his window of opportunity closing, had moved to the harmonic disruptor's main controls. Bypassing safety protocols to accelerate its power-up sequence, he's forcing it to full power prematurely, Richard warned. If that device activates before you reach the core, we're going, Marcus assured him. The completed Nexus key now secured in the chronometric gauntlet's containment field. Before leaving, Marcus embraced his father, careful to maintain the thin temporal barrier between them. I'll be back for you, he promised. Whatever it takes, I know you will, Richard replied, emotion briefly cracking his composed exterior. You're more capable than I ever was. Now go. Save what's worth saving. The team moved swiftly toward the newly revealed passage, led by the Keeper's glowing form. As they entered the corridor, Marcus looked back one last time to see his father returning to the control panel, working frantically to maintain the chamber's failing systems. The passage to the core was unlike any section of the temple they had previously encountered. The walls, floor, and ceiling seemed composed of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, pulsing with patterns that responded to their movements. Each step produced ripples of light that spread outward like stones dropped in still water. From hidden recesses along the corridor emerged hovering spheres of golden light, dozens of them, forming an honor guard that accompanied their progress. The mnemonic guardians, the Keeper explained. They carry the consciousness of those who served the temple throughout history. Blackwood noticed that one sphere moved directly beside Marcus, matching his pace exactly. Is that? He began. Yes, the Keeper confirmed. The first navigator from your lineage, from whom all others descended. He recognizes the Nexus key and offers his guidance. The sphere pulsed in acknowledgement, and Marcus felt a subtle presence touch his mind, not with words, but with impressions and emotions, conveying support and urgency. At the end of the passage stood a set of massive doors unlike any they had seen, seemingly composed of solid light that shifted through all possible colors in endless permutation. The doors bore no physical handles or control panels, only an indentation in their center shaped precisely like the completed Nexus key. The core awaits, the Keeper announced as the team gathered before the shimmering entrance. Beyond lies the heart of the node network and humanity's possible futures. Marcus raised the chronometric gauntlet, the completed Nexus key hovering just above its palm. As he moved the key toward the indentation in the massive doors, it began to pulse in rhythm with the shifting colors of the barrier before them. The moment the key made contact, the entire door dissolved into particles of light that swirled around them before dissipating completely. The core lay revealed, a vast spherical chamber whose boundaries seemed to extend beyond physical space. The walls, if they could be called that, displayed a complete real-time view of Earth from orbit, continents clearly visible, weather systems moving in accelerated time. Above this planetary view, the star field rotated slowly, key celestial bodies highlighted and labeled in the same symbols found throughout the temple. At the chamber's center floated what appeared to be a miniature sun, a sphere of pure energy approximately 3 meters in diameter, contained within nested fields of force that rotated in complex geometric patterns. Surrounding this central power source were 12 smaller spheres, arranged in a perfect dodecahedron, each representing one of the global nodes. The primary nexus, the Keeper identified, its light form expanding and brightening in proximity to the core energy. The quantum computational center that links and powers all 12 nodes. A circular platform extended from where they stood to the center of the chamber, providing access to a control pedestal positioned before the primary nexus. The pedestal featured a receptacle clearly designed for the nexus key. As they stepped onto the platform, a violent tremor shook the entire structure. Several of the 12 node spheres flickered, their light dimming momentarily. Phillips's harmonic disruptor is at 70% power, Chen reported, checking his instruments. The temple's outer structure is critically compromised. Hurry! the keeper urged. Once the key is inserted, you must complete the activation sequence precisely as Richard showed you. Marcus moved toward the central pedestal, the key still secured in the gauntlet's field. The team followed, each experiencing the overwhelming sense of standing at the intersection of countless temporal threads, past, present, and multiple possible futures converging in this singular point of space and time. The viewing wall activated one final time, showing Phillips at the harmonic disruptor's controls. His face displayed a combination of scientific detachment and almost religious fervor as he initiated the final power sequence. The massive device's concentric rings now rotated so rapidly they appeared solid, the energy core between them building to blinding intensity. 30 seconds to full activation, the keeper warned. Marcus reached the pedestal and carefully guided the Nexus key into its receptacle. The moment it locked into place, the key's shifting geometry stabilized, and the pedestal illuminated with intricate control interfaces that projected into the air around him. Following the sequence Richard had shown him, Marcus began the precise series of gestures that would activate Protocol 7. The primary nexus responded immediately, its rotation patterns shifting as new layers of energy fields manifested around its core. Energy surge detected at the chrono-resonance chamber, Chen called out, watching his instruments with concern. Something's happening with your father. A holographic window appeared, showing Richard Reeves at the chamber's controls. He had connected himself directly to the system using cables that linked to his temples and wrists. His body was partially transparent, temporal energy visibly flowing through him. "Dad, what are you doing?" Marcus called out, though he continued the activation sequence as instructed. "What's necessary?" Richard replied, his voice coming through with strange harmonic overtones. "I'm using my temporal displacement to create a feedback loop in Phillips' device. It's the only way to stop him in time. That could kill you," Marcus protested. "I've been living on borrowed time for 30 years, Richard replied with calm acceptance. "Finish the sequence, son. I'll handle Phillips." Outside, the harmonic disruptor reached peak power, its energy field expanding to engulf the temple's outer structure. But as it did, a counterwave emanated from the chrono-resonance chamber. Richard Reeves channeling the temporal energies that had held him captive back against Phillips's device. The two energy fields collided with catastrophic results. The harmonic disruptor's carefully calibrated systems destabilized, its power core rupturing in a spectacular implosion that created a localized temporal vortex. Phillips and his immediate team were caught in the effect, their forms stretching and compressing before vanishing completely, displaced to an unknown point in time. Within the core, Marcus completed the final gesture of the activation sequence. The Nexus key pulsed one last time before seeming to dissolve into pure energy that flowed into the primary nexus. The central sphere flared blindingly bright, sending waves of power through the connections to all 12 global nodes. Protocol 7 initiated, the keeper announced as the chamber filled with golden light. Recalibration and security lockdown commencing. The Earth view surrounding them showed ripples of energy emanating from each node location, spreading across continents and oceans. Wherever these waves passed, subtle changes occurred in the landscape, ancient ruins previously hidden becoming visible, certain modern structures reconfiguring or disappearing entirely. The network is reasserting its original parameters, the keeper explained, restoring balance to systems that have been corrupted or misused over centuries. A final, massive tremor shook the chamber as the temple's entire structure began to reconfigure itself, damaged sections regenerating, new rooms and passages forming, while others sealed permanently. Temporal displacement field expanding, the keeper reported. All unauthorized personnel are being relocated outside the valley perimeter. The viewing wall showed Nexus teams and government forces suddenly enveloped in spheres of light before vanishing, reappearing confused but unharmed several kilometers away at the valley's edge. Simultaneously, A shimmering dome of energy expanded to encompass the entire valley, sealing it from outside interference. As the protocol completed its activation sequence, a new presence manifested in the core chamber, a figure composed entirely of light, more defined and substantial than the Keeper, but clearly of the same origin. The Guardian Prime, the Keeper explained, its own form dimming slightly in deference, awakened only during network resets or transitions. The luminous figure regarded them silently before speaking in a voice that somehow combined masculine and feminine qualities. Ancient wisdom and childlike wonder, the cycle continues, it stated simply. New guardians rise as the old ones fall. The architect's vision endures through worthy inheritors. With a gesture, the Guardian Prime caused 4 small objects to materialize before the team, medallions of an unknown metal, each inscribed with symbols specific to their respective bloodlines. The Guardian emblems, the Keeper identified with what sounded like reverence, symbols of authority over the temple's systems and protection against its defensive measures. You have proven yourselves worthy, the Guardian Prime continued. The node network is now under your stewardship until the architect's return or new guardians are chosen. Use this responsibility wisely. Marcus accepted his emblem, but his thoughts remained with his father. What about Richard Reeves? Can he be saved? The Guardian Prime's light form shifted, displaying what appeared to be genuine regret. His physical form was lost in the temporal feedback, but his consciousness, the golden sphere that had accompanied them, the mnemonic guardian containing the first navigator's essence, moved forward, now joined by a second sphere of equal luminosity. Your father's consciousness has been preserved, the Guardian Prime explained. He has joined the ancestral guardians who watch over the temple. His knowledge and memories remain accessible to guide you. The second sphere, Richard, pulsed in acknowledgement, moving close to Marcus. Though no words were exchanged, Marcus felt his father's presence, pride and love communicated directly to his mind. He is at peace, the Guardian Prime assured him, and his sacrifice has secured the node network for generations to come. As the reset protocol completed, the primary nexus settled into a stable configuration, its energy output regulated and balanced. The 12 node representations all glowed with renewed strength, their connections to the central core restored and protected. What happens now? Blackwood asked, the Guardian emblem gleaming against his chest. You return to your world, carrying new knowledge and responsibilities, the Guardian Prime replied. The valley will remain sealed for 100 years, but you may come and go freely through passages only you can access. And Phillips? Miguel inquired. Displaced through time, as were those closest to him, the Keeper answered. Where and when they emerged, even we cannot know with certainty. Cameron studied his emblem, then looked at the tools he had claimed from the architect's box. What about these? Do we take them with us? They are yours by birthright, the Guardian Prime confirmed. Use them to maintain balance between the architect's legacy and humanity's natural development. The chamber began to shift around them, a new doorway forming in its wall, this one opening not to another section of the temple, but directly to the valley's edge, beyond the temporal barrier. The world awaits your return, the Guardian Prime said. But remember, you are now part of something greater than yourselves. The knowledge you carry must be protected and shared only with those who prove worthy. As they prepared to exit, Marcus felt the weight of his father's guardian emblem against his chest, a physical reminder of inherited responsibility and sacrifice. The 2 mnemonic guardians, his ancestor and his father, accompanied them to the threshold, the golden light illuminating the path forward. Beyond the doorway lay their own world, unchanged, yet somehow different through their newly enlightened eyes. Behind them remained the temple, ancient and new simultaneously, its mysteries partly revealed but still largely unexplored, waiting for their return when the time was right.